I just want to go ahead and say this. The way that we've operated for the longest time in the United States when it comes to like firearms is really strange. We have a gun culture, right? We have a culture that worships guns, and that is a thing that we need to work on. It's a thing that needs to be solved. But the way that we have, like, the things that we have banned in terms of guns, in terms of weaponry, doesn't make any fucking sense to me, right? So, like, bump stocks. We banned bump stocks in the United States. But a bump stock just takes a semi-automatic firearm and lets you fire a little quicker. You know what also lets you fire a little quicker with a semi-automatic firearm? Just pulling the trigger faster. Like, that's literally how you make a semi-automatic weapon go faster. I didn't understand the bump stock thing. I don't think I'm ever going to understand the bump stock thing. The bump stock thing, to me, seems like what Congress has to do to ban something that looks like they are working on a solution to the gun problem, but not ban something that actually solves the problem. Like, let's see here. List of banned gun paraphernalia, right? Let's go ahead and take a look at these real quick. Restricted guns, ammo, parts. All right. Banned in Alabama, right? Brass or steel Teflon-coated handgun ammo, unless designed to expand on contact. Brass or steel Teflon-coated handgun ammo, unless... Okay, so anything but a hollow point. You're allowed to have them if it's hollow point, which I guess makes sense because a hollow point is safer to fire at a person for everybody around, right? If you fire a hollow point at somebody, the hollow point expands when it goes into the body, and it prevents it from going further and like puncturing somebody, going through a wall and hitting something else, right? Banned in Alaska, none. Free state. Banned in Arizona, none. Free state. Arkansas, no machine guns or short-barreled rifles. Now, the thing about a short-barreled rifle, why is that the one banned? Because the reason a short-barreled rifle would be banned would be concealment, right? Like, that's the thing that you would ban it for. You don't want somebody concealing a rifle. But in terms of mechanics, the difference between a rifle and a handgun is very, very slim. All you're doing is trading recoil and size in most cases. If I fire a 9mm carbine and I fire a 9mm handgun, it's going to be easier to aim the carbine. The carbine's going to absorb a lot more of the actual, like, bounce back from the bullets. But all things considered, if they're like, yeah, no, you can't use a short version of this, that doesn't make any sense to me, because somebody could just use a handgun and that's just as concealed and just as lethal, like 100% as lethal. These feel like the things that people do when they go, we want to look like we are solving the problem, but we are not actually willing to solve the problem. We are not actually willing to do the thing that is needed. Like in the United States, the thing that's probably needed the most is for our gun culture to shift so that people do not use guns as penis measuring devices, right? That's one of the main things that needs to happen in the United States. Our sensibilities around guns will get better the more legislation there is to make sure that guns are harder to purchase for the everyman. More regulations on gun shows, things like that. But when you ban specific things there, it looks like you are just trying to do something that looks like you're solving the problem instead of actually doing it. Eric Knox says recoil size, weight, and ability to quickly clear an area. The M16 is a full pound heavier than the M4. It was a huge deal in the military when it was happening. So Paige says gun licenses work too. Gun license. I want gun licenses to be a thing. I want gun licenses to be a thing. Period. I need gun licenses to be a thing in the United States. Glitchmaster says that's the Demseo glitch. Is this a glitch that I know? Just double checking because the name changes sometimes. But if you are bought by the NRA, which I'm firmly in the belief that both political parties are, banning certain types of weapons or banning bump stocks or banning these things that don't actually do anything is a way to both placate the lobbyists at the NRA while also looking like you are actively working towards taking care of the solution when you're not really, not at all. right? So in California, which looks like there's far more going on here, fixed ammo other than so you cannot have caliber sizes greater than .60. I'm gonna be honest, caliber size, it does matter a lot. It's the difference between a bullet turning your head into a fine paste and a bullet going into your head, so I can understand that a little bit. Cane guns, wallet guns, undetectable firearms, fletchet darts, bullets containing an explosive agent, tracer ammo, armor-piercing ammo. So this looks like the guns that are allowed in California, they are trying to make it to where, like, this is actually somewhat sensible. This is to lower the amount of collateral damage that happens when somebody is using a weapon. This actually makes perfect sense to me. Because why, like, the only reason that you worry about the size of a barrel for a rifle is the concealment ability of the rifle. But if you are actually going in and getting rid of every single type of undetectable kind of gun, okay, cool. That makes a little more sense. You can't use any of these variety of firearms that aren't actually, for one, oftentimes are a little more dangerous, have more recoil, shit like that. If you have a wallet gun, if it's not like a 22, the recoil on that's going to be insane, just from experience. But trying to get rid of concealed weaponry seems to be what most of that is for. As far as the armor-piercing ammo, explosive ammo, ammo of a certain high caliber, again, this all is stuff that you would use to reduce the amount of collateral damage that happens from a weapon. That's fairly sensible. You don't want somebody using an armor-piercing round in a drive-by, right? Like, I'm sure they would like that to happen, but that's the quickest way to make sure that whoever some gang lord is aiming at, they're not going to get just the person they're aiming at. They're getting the person behind them and the person behind them. Having says, hey, I'm back. What are we talking about now? Right now, we are talking about gun laws in the United States and the ones that are sensible versus the ones that are not, right? The ones that look more like somebody somewhere is trying to pretend like they are doing the right thing and solving all of the problems versus the ones that actually seem to do something, right? If I look at gun violence, say gun violence by state, per capita gun violence state. Let's go ahead and take a look and see what we can see. Because that will tell me whether or not any of these are actually working. I can look at these and say, oh, that is sensible, but that's not going to necessarily be true. Let's see. If I don't have some numbers in front of me. So give me just a second to fix YouTube chat. 1080. 1080. There we go. And again, I say this as somebody who is in a weird spot when it comes with guns. I like guns, but I think the way we treat guns in America is completely nonsensical. It doesn't make any sense to me. We seem to be more focused in the United States with worshiping guns and having a culture about using them as measuring devices for wieners, more than we actually use them as the tools that the right wing tries to pretend that they're for. So, I will also say this. As a leftist, I think that the proletariat should be armed. Hands down, no negotiation. I believe that a proletariat that is losing more and more bargaining power at the table should have the ability to protect themselves from union busters. Once upon a time, companies used to actually hire union busting agencies that would physically attack and sometimes kill people in unions. So, with that being part of American history, I'm going to go ahead and say the proletariat should be fucking armed. But if we are going to look at this from the perspective of which of these laws actually do the thing that gun laws are supposed to do, which is lower the amount of deaths per capita that happen as a result of guns, then we need to look at statistics. So with all these gun laws here, silencers, short-barreled rifles, multi-trigger activators, zip guns, assault weapons, again, assault weapon is any kind of semi-automatic center-fire rifle that does not have a fixed magazine. Okay, so I guess the reason that they're worried about this one, So it's again about collateral damage, right? So if I'm using a weapon with a fixed magazine, loading the weapon takes time. Once I'm spent, it's time to load. But if I have a weapon that I can pull the magazine out, put a new one in constantly, I can come to an area with like 5 or 6 magazines filled with ammunition, sometimes like 30 pieces of ammo, right? So that, again, in terms of lowering collateral damage, that makes sense, right? I understand that. That's completely fair. A zip gun is any kind of improvised firearm. This is something that may not have been a gun originally, but you made a gun out of it, right? So, like, let's say you take a pen and you hollow out the inside of the pen and you put a 22 round in the front of the pen, and then you put a trigger in, not really a trigger so much as you have a button here with a striker, so I can hold the pen that looks like a pen, aim it at somebody, and press the trigger, and it will strike the back of the piece of 22 ammo, fire that out like a regular gun. Now, the problem with a gun like that is, as cool as they are from like the prospect of a spy doing something, right? The issue with those guns is they are not very safe. They explode in your hands very fucking frequently. Like, zip guns, any kind of zip gun, if you are not a trained professional, can blow up on you very easily, right? You can make a shotgun at Home Depot. You can go to Home Depot right now and you can make a fucking shotgun that will fire birdshot and do a very respectable job of firing that birdshot. The problem with it is you won't necessarily have something that is super safe. Not for you to use, and maybe not even for what you're aiming around. Because also with zip guns, typically you can't control the spin of the bullet. So if it is like birdshot, that's fine to a degree. Again, it could explode in your hands. There's still a safety problem. But if you're firing that 22 round, the likelihood that that 22 round is going to stay straight the way it would with a barreled gun is really, really low. That round may actually go wide or wild, so even if you're using it for self-defense, you may end up hitting the fucking grocery store clerk. You may end up hitting the, like some other fucking person down the road instead of the person you're aiming at. That's the reason you ban zip guns. That makes perfect sense. Now, while there is something to be said about how much that does infringe on a person's individual freedom, when again, you can construct this with just shit you found at a Home Depot for like $10. Like, there is a conversation to be had there. But right now, if we look at all of these different criteria, we have to ask ourselves, per capita, what's the gun violence look like in California? And we find that they are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They are the 7th least likely place to experience gun violence deaths. They are in the top percentile for the United States, top 20% of states, where you are least likely to experience death because of a pew-pew. So while they are very restrictive on their guns, when you actually look at the laws, they make sense, and they look like they are very effective. Like, that's what you have to do here, is you can't just look at a law and go, oh, that is correct, that's what I agree with, that's not correct, that's what I don't agree with. You have to look at the results of that law. And it looks like, in terms of here, California, per 1,000 residents, has 8.7 gun-related deaths. So that's actually pretty good. That's actually pretty good. Sakura says, I will also add that California has almost 40 million people in it. Doesn't matter. How does that factor in? Like, that doesn't factor in at all, because this is per capita. It's, like, this is adjusted for the population of California. Like, if it's per capita numbers, the 40 million people is a complete non-conversation piece. It doesn't matter at all. Because we've already accounted for it by doing this per capita. And for those who might not know, per capita statistics are per 10 people, per 100 people, per 1,000 people, per 100,000 people. Like, it is per the amount of people there. So per capita always scales to the population. Sakura says there are people that will ignore per capita rate and focus on the raw numbers of deaths. Those people are idiots. Those people are morons. Those people are absolute dipshits and are more concerned with sounding correct than being correct. Like, those are the people who you should never, ever, ever listen to because they aren't willing to back up their claims with raw data. They'd rather be a fucking shock jock and get their, get their clicks, get their jollies that way. Colorado just bans machine guns and magazines that hold more than 15 rounds. Okay, cool. With just those two bans, Colorado has 17.3 deaths per 100,000 residents. With just those two restrictions, they have double the deaths of California. Mississippi has the most. So what do the Mississippi gun laws look like? Let's take a look here. Mississippi, a free state with no major restrictions on guns, ammo, or parts. Wow. Isn't it so crazy that by being a free state with no restrictions on guns, ammo, or parts whatsoever, they would top the list with the most gun-related deaths? God, that's so strange. That's so strange. That's super weird. Man, I wonder why that would happen. Orla says, there's also the point that data can be manipulated unless you know all the context that goes with it. Like people say per capita, more POC. People commit murders, but neglecting the fact that police send more people to POC areas than considering that only 52% murders get solved in the states. Yeah, there's always extra stuff. There's always extra stuff that goes into it, right? Always, always, always. So we're getting more strict on gun sales, but yeah, Colorado's a long way to go. So what happens if we look at Louisiana, second highest gun deaths in the United States? What do we have there, right? Just real quick, let's go ahead and remember my ABCs to figure out that L is after M. LMNOP, oh, wait, hold on. LMN, Massachusetts, Maine, Maryland, Louisiana. All they care about is armor-piercing ammo, and technically they don't care about machine guns because there are exceptions that can be made for machine guns. It's almost like when you look at places that have fewer laws about guns, more people fucking die. So this is why I think it's okay, even with an armed proletariat, to have a lot of gun restrictions, because then you can have people who have well-regulated weapons, right? As opposed to just random people who just get involved in gun fucking violence all the time. So what's the other one here? Let's look at, I'm just curious about Illinois. Illinois bans machine guns, silencers, explosive bullets, firearms with a low melting point, void cards for purchase required, any rifle having one or more barrels less than 16 inches or length, or a shotgun having one or more barrels less than 18 inches in length, any weapon made from a rifle or a shotgun, whether by alteration, modification, or otherwise, if such a weapon modified has an overall length of less than 26 inches, armor-piercing bullets, Dragon's Breath shotgun shells are banned, bolo shells or flechette shells. It is also unlawful to use a firearm in the shape of a wireless telephone. Okay? So not as strict as California, but still somewhat strict. I wonder where Illinois ranks. Well, Illinois, with a few more restrictions than everywhere else, but not quite as many restrictions as California, ends up having 14.5 deaths per 100,000. Half as many as the top in Mississippi, and not quite double what California has. Why is there one thing banned in Idaho? There is nothing banned in Idaho. Free state. So if we look at the free state, if we look at Idaho, where do we expect Idaho to show up? Well, I expect it kind of higher to the top. So yeah, 17.5. 17.5. Now, Idaho is a very, very rural state. So, most people who have guns there generally are like farm folk who aren't using them or going into the city or anything like that. So there is reason for the number to be a little lower. Not quite half, but still definitely lower than Mississippi. But, should be noted again, double California's as you go. Gamer Jam says, conservatives say raising the minimum wage will destroy business. Our system partly depends on paying many workers starvation wages. Not exactly a plus for capitalism. No, it's not. No, it's not. No, it is not. Iowa's also a free state, but Iowa's also very rural, so I expect it to be what? What do we expect Iowa to be without me looking at it yet? I'm expecting it to be anywhere between 14 and 18 for Iowa. And Iowa, interesting, 11.3 for Iowa. That one is interesting. So, when we do that, let's go ahead and take a look. Why are gun RCs? Population of Iowa. Iowa's 3.2 million people. So, what, that's like 30 deaths? No, it's like 60 deaths a year. From guns. How rural is Iowa? Approximately 1/3 of Iowa's population lives in the rural areas. Okay. Let's see here. It's how rural it is. That's the function there. That's the function there. So for California, right, as our, like, control for all of this, that everything's kind of moving around, California is not very rural. Only 5% of the state's population lives in the rural areas. But when you look at Iowa, 1/3 of their population lives in the rural areas. So while they have no gun laws there, not to a major degree, the population is very, very spread out, which means the chance of violence doesn't happen anywhere near as often. So that makes sense. That makes sense. Like how Orla Seraph said, one of the things that is important to do when you're looking at this kind of stuff is to contextualize that data. A Wild Nick says, and their major cities are smaller. Rhode Island has the least amount, but Rhode Island's also the tiniest state. So let's go with Massachusetts. Massachusetts, though, that's fairly extensive. Assault weapon ban, large capacity feeding devices are banned. Covert weapons, all of them are banned. Silencers are also banned. Okay, cool. So they are as restrictive as California, but instead of using specifics for each of their categories, they just have a large thing. Like, you can't have large capacity feeding devices. Oh, wait, no, they allow armor-piercing ammo, though. So not quite as restrictive as California. They still have, like, you can still use armor-piercing ammo, but assault weapons, they have a list of those that are specifically banned. Revolving cylinder shotguns are banned. Large capacity feeding devices are banned. Covert weapons, all of them. Any kind of covert weapon is considered banned there. Is GA a free state? Kind of, sort of. So let's go up to Georgia. So none, free state, no major restrictions on guns, ammo, or parts. I say kind of, sort of, because we used to have a law about carrying that changed in 2022. 2022, the law on carrying weapons in Georgia became that you could carry weapons unrestricted as long as they were visible. That's, you're just able to do that with no license whatsoever. So that was a very recent change in terms of, like, how long a state's been around, right? And where does Georgia sit in terms of gun deaths? Of course, we rank pretty high up there. So while Georgia may be fairly rural, Georgia has a lot of dense population centers. We have Marietta, we have Kennesaw, we have Atlanta, right? Like, these are all fairly dense population centers, so the likelihood of violence happening is still decently high. A lot of people don't live in necessarily the rural areas, they live in the suburbs. Proximity plus lack of gun laws and regulation equals higher gun violence. Taproot says we have the same in Texas. Texas is interesting. So Texas is both a place with dense population centers Lots of rural area, but not a lot of people living in the rural areas, right? Texas ends up at a 15.7 when we look at its gun deaths. It's at about the halfway point. Because while it has those dense population areas, it has these large rural areas. There's not a lot of people living in them, I don't think. Let's go ahead and check here. Let's go ahead and check. One sec. How rural is Texas? Let's see here. Oh, interesting. Texas has the largest rural population of the United States as of 2023. Interesting. Only, let's see, 6%. Okay, cool. So, Texas having the largest rural population means even though they have the lax gun laws, they don't have the proximity problem to the same degree. I was unaware of that. When I've driven through Texas, those rural areas seem completely underpopulated. But obviously, I'm not an expert in that, and I was corrected by a Google search. So, yeah, the commonalities seem to be you have people in a dense enough population, and you have gun laws that are very, very lax. You just get more fucking deaths. The laws are part of the conundrum. And it's one of the reasons why I have a very weird relationship with how gun laws are handled in the United States, because we have very strange things that are federally banned, and we have very inconsistent laws about what's banned state by state, and then the numbers bear out that none of this is fucking working. Not to the degree it should be. But that was an interesting experiment. That was a fun dive down statistics lane. I'm sure there's information that I may be omitting just because I am not an expert on this. So if you've got any information where this is concerned that you want to go ahead and throw at me, then hey, by all means, do so in the comment section. Axolotls with cream was correct. This sounds like a topic because this was a topic. As always, everybody, insert end of video tagline here. Hey, just wanted to give a quick thank you to all of my wonderful patrons who help keep me afloat and help keep this channel going. YouTube and Twitch are wonderful platforms, but at the end of the day, stability is not one of their strong suits. If you want to support my channel, then obviously Patreon is one of the best ways of doing that. Link is in the description. But I do want to personally thank everybody who has contributed to the channel. Those people would be Red Joker, Purple Poundini, Jemshin, Britzkrieg, Jupe the Malignant, Michael, Ravalern, Mabbity Babbity, Astral Frontier, Autumn and Angel, Nixie Chan, Mark Anthony, Victorian Alchemist, I'm not saying the last part of that, and you know that. Arcton Arclacier, Kiratorian, Dren Hadamata, Jordan M, John L, Lord Bleck, Smiling Game Master, and Fireshard. And everyone else who supports my channel and lets me do what I do full time. This is a dream job of mine that I never believed that I would be able to take full time, and with your help, I've been able to do it. So thank you so very much for that. Thank you for watching the video. I hope you all enjoy, and I hope you all are having a wonderful time. I will see you all in the next one, hopefully.